There we go. Welcome to episode 55, the Quarkus 2.0 launch. And I actually have a little bit of friends with me this time. The Brady Bunch of Quarkus. Here we go.
We're pushing the limit of the platform. Eh?
We are. So we have a little special edition this time. As usual, if you are listening in or on live and you have the chat, please do put questions. We'll put them in. But we have a busy show. And just for everyone to give an idea, I'm going to move around and press it. We're going to cover all the big things that are coming in Quarkus 2. So some of you guys might have noticed that we already have pushed the core version of Quarkus 2, so you can actually try the core version if you know where to find it. And the Quarkus 2 platform, which is where we normally release everything together, Quarkus with Cogito, Camel, and a few other extensions that are not in the core, is coming out this Wednesday. So today, Monday, we're going to talk about kind of the whole big picture as good as we can. And for that, I have the Brady Bunch here, which is a bunch of people who've been on and a few new faces. And we will talk about continuous testing and dev services by Stuart. Clement is going to cover what we say, like 2-3 hours of material in like 10 minutes about reactive improvements. The Graphql client that's coming by Jan, and Hibernate. San is here to talk about Hibernate, and whatever is left, we might talk about some of the things that are coming down the line in the 2x that we already know about. So let me try and go back. Oh, that was the wrong button. Turn that on off again. Hey, awesome. So, any other comments from you guys? You all set?
I got one.
Oh. Got one?
So the funny story is that I hated the fact that we were going for a 2.0 because the way I saw things, I wanted essentially to never do a big break, right? So it was a 1 point something forever, or you go for the Google Chrome model of just going for majors. But I've got quite overruled, and the 2.0 is coming. That being said, it shouldn't break your app too much, right?
That's what we're claiming, at least.
Max, show everybody your shirt. Your homemade shirt.
I now have the new version. That's the. So that might be or might not be somewhere on the way, but you have to get 2 out first. So that's how it goes. And we got Aaron, who's on a boat somewhere in a mysterious country.
In Michigan.
Michigan. With working Wi-Fi. Awesome. Cool. So anyway, let's get started. So just for one thing I know that we don't cover for the 2.0, as Emmanuel said, it's not intended to break users. There are a few things, but they're all well documented. But the primary one is the one that Clement is talking about, this Vertex 4. But the one thing I just want to highlight, because maybe not everyone has been on the stream, we've talked about it before, is we are dropping support for Java 8 in the VM mode, right? Native is always Java 11. And for VM mode, we're now on Java 11 and forward. So if you're still on Java 8, you'll be using Quarkus 1.13 something. 1.13.7, yeah. And now then when 2.0 comes out, please, give that as a reason to move up to a more modern, recent Java version, like Java 11, which is now 5 years old. I can't forgot the count. Oleg asked, do you have time to submit the pull request before Wednesday? That's going to be tough. You'll have to be in the platform, I think, because the tag has been made. But you're welcome to try, and we'll see how it goes.
And make Guillaume really unhappy.
Yes, if you find something. Okay.
Well, if it doesn't go in 2.0, we have 2.1, 2.2, and so on, which are already planned. So no worries.
No worries. Okay, but at Docs, yes, they're all in the same place. Only platform members can do a change. Yes, that's it. Okay, well, my 5 minutes has been spent. Stuart, you want to talk about
continuous testing?
Continuous testing, yes.
No, yes.
Yeah, so hi guys, I'm Stuart. I've been on the show a few times, but I just work on the core of Quarkus. And I'm just going to show off continuous testing, which I have showed before in more depth, but I'm just going to give a quick overview today. So what I've got here is the getting started example. I'm just going to run nvm Quarkus dev and launch in dev mode with 2.0. Now, out of the box, it should just launch our standard dev mode that we're all familiar with. But there is a bit of a change here. Now down the bottom, we have this little console bit. It says test pause, press R to resume, or H for more options. So if I just press R here, it's going to run all the tests in my test suite. And we can see that took about 3 seconds. I can press R to rerun them again, and now it's much faster the second time. And now my app is basically being tested, and I can start to develop it live. So this is a slightly modified version of the Hello World Quick Start, as well as doing the having a hello resource that can just say hello. I've also got a farewell resource that can say bye, and I've got an extra test for the farewell resource as well. So I'll make some changes. Instead of saying hi, I think I want to actually say hello. I think it's a bit of a better greeting. And now when that file's saved, we can see that immediately my test is now failing. And you might also notice down here that it only actually ran 2 tests rather than all 5. And that's because it detected that 3 of the tests didn't need to be ran because this change wasn't relevant to them. So we actually trace the changes that we make and trace which tests affect which code. So when we're running these tests, we only run the minimum amount of tests that we actually need to. So now I can go to this test, my greeting resource test, and I can change this as well, save the file, and now we're back to completely passing. This time it ran 3 tests because there's 3 different tests in this test file, including a somewhat empty, useless one that I'll just delete. Now, all of these have been Quarkus tests, which means that it actually starts Quarkus each time to run the tests, but they don't have to be Quarkus tests. We can do unit tests as well, and that will give you almost instant feedback. So if I go create a file called service test void test greeting sessions.
So while you're typing, I'll just want to say, when you guys try this out, give it a go. Like it's a fun thing. Like you see it and you'd be like, oh, this is cool, this is nice. But once you get used to it, you get addicted. Basically, it's a bit too fast. Basically.
Now, I'll save my test, and you can see it ran in like 26 milliseconds. So it's basically as fast as you can save the file. You have the results instantly.
Nice.
And all right, I'm still failing. Oops. I changed the greeting to hello. And there we have it. And that's basically all there is to it. You just start your tests and start writing your code and testing it, and Quarkus will just keep track of everything in the background. And this also integrates with our new dev services stuff. So what dev services is, this isn't actually new in 2.0, but it's been expanded quite a lot, is that if you have an extension that requires an external service like a database or Kafka, if you haven't configured one, in dev and test mode will just automatically start one for you. So now here, if I run nvm Quarkus dev in our Hibernate quick start, we don't actually have a data source configured in this quick start. It's only configured for production mode, not for dev and test mode. But now we'll see that as it's starting up, because it hasn't been configured, we're actually starting a Postgres database. And now if I press R to resume the tests, you might notice there's a little bit of a delay before it starts before the tests actually run. And that's because it starts a second Postgres database, just so your tests and your dev mode are completely isolated from each other and they're not going to interfere. So now if I rerun the tests again, now they run much faster because that database is already up and you don't have to wait for it to come up each time. And yeah, now you can just make changes as normal and break or not break your tests as you go. There's also a few other options that you here. If you press H, you can see them. So it's not just testing options. We can also toggle instrumentation based, which can give you fast reloads if you don't change the structure of a class. We have a thing called broken only mode, where if you have a lot of tests that are being run, but you're only interested in the failing ones, you can toggle this and then it won't run tests that are already passing. Yeah, and just a few other sort of options. Also, if you don't actually want to use development mode, if you only care about tests, you can run MVN Quarkus test, and then it just runs the test and doesn't actually run your application in development mode. So we'll see here.
And still continuously, right?
Yeah, still continuously. Yeah. It works exactly this, almost exactly the same. The only real difference is you don't have to press R at the start, like, because it knows you want to run the tests, and it also will display the test output by default. While in dev mode, we hide the output by default just so you don't end up with a lot of stuff in the console. So that's the only real.
Benjamin's asking a question. So does Flyway rerun automatically too? Automatically is really every asked.
Yes, if that's how your tests are configured. So if you run Flyway whenever Quarkus starts, then yes.
So that's the reason why the dev and test are running from two different databases, so that your unit test is not polluted. The changes are not polluting your dev environment while you work on a longer instance, right?
Yeah, and vice versa. Like if you're not, if you're trying to develop while the tests are running, you don't stick some data in there that breaks your tests. So yeah, it's just, that's why we keep it isolated, just so that, because otherwise there's too much possibility for them to interfere with each other. So even though these run in the same JVM, they're very isolated. They're in completely separate class loaders. They're as isolated as I can possibly make them within the same JVM.
Very nice. Cool. Any comments, questions before we jump on to Clement? You're so quiet today.
Let's skip some buffers.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Clement, back to you. Let me find your screen.
Right.
You are there. Voila. And he keeps flipping this around.
So just to introduce myself, I'm Clement. I'm working on almost everything reactive on Quarkus, not only on Quarkus, but spending a lot of time on Quarkus recently. And we had a lot of things around reactive in Quarkus 2.0. It's actually has been the primary reason for doing a Quarkus 2.0 is that we updated Vertex. Vertex is our engine. It's what's power Quarkus, especially if you use HTTP, Kafka, and so on. And Vertex 3 that we were using in Quarkus 1 was around 6 years ago, something like that. So it was time for Vertex to get some new features, some breaking change in, and we have much better context handling. We have lots of new features around data, around asynchronous data access, better security, and so on. So it was really the time for Vertex to evolve, and we decided to bring this evolution into Quarkus. And again, to remember how it works, I don't have slides, I just have ASCII art today. So at the bottom, you have our Vertex and Netty engine, and that is a layer that will use non-blocking I/O to do HTTP database, GRPC, Kafka, MQP, and whatever, everything that is network-based, more or less. On top of that, you have the Quarkus extension, and it's where the reactive integration happens, in the sense that these extensions need to be aware of this model to benefit from the reactive ideas of Quarkus. That doesn't mean that your application code cannot be imperative and blocking. It's all these extensions I have here can switch from imperative to reactive just by using the @blocking annotations or @non-blocking annotation and so on. So that doesn't mean that you can't build imperative application on top of our reactive core. It's actually the opposite. And even imperative applications will get lots of benefits like this. So to demonstrate a lot of these new features, I've built small demos. I've reused the demos, let's say. We are going to see two traditional CRUD services, both reactive. One will use Mutiny and Hibernate reactive. I won't go too much into the detail of Hibernate reactive. Sunny is here and he has much more knowledge about that. We are also going to see the VLAN services that will use Kotlin coroutines, because in Quarkus 2.0 we have a way better, we can integrate Kotlin coroutine. The file service is using GRPC. We have a lot of improvement around GRPCs, and we have an API gateway. So full reactive, using fault tolerance, Mutiny, reactive REST client, GRPCs, and we also have a bit of Kafka. Something before I start showing you the code, another thing that we changed in Quarkus 2.0 is microprofile 4. We have no compliant implementation for every microprofile 4 specification, including fault tolerance, else config, and so on. In addition to that, we have lots of extensions that have been implemented in the small I implementation of microprofile, which are integrated in Quarkus. So there is things that are purely microprofile 4 and some which are extensions that we are building in small I. Okay, enough talking. It's time to see some code. So no big surprise here. This is Hibernate reactive. If you never use Hibernate reactive, it's like Hibernate, but using non-blocking asynchronous database drivers. And it's integrated using the Mutiny model. So you will write such kind of things. You have uni and multi, and there is a couple of improvements in Mutiny as well, but we didn't break anything around that. So this is very, very classical. And then on top of that, you have REST-easy reactive resource. And if I do this, let's see, that is this one. It's already running. Boom, I got a random hero that's Warlock. So that works. That's great. But yeah, that's not really new. You were able to use that in 1.13. What's changed a little bit is that you can now write your resources using Kotlin, and the integration is much better than before. There is two things. So first, you can use multis as we were doing before, but you can also use coroutines. So now you can write such kind of things directly with REST-easy reactive, like I suspend, and your code here will be like writing blocking code, except that it's actually not blocking. It's just rewriting the code to be completely, to pass continuations along the way. We have built-in coroutine support for a couple of extensions, so the reactive REST client, Hibernate reactive, and a few others. And if you can't find your happiness in that, I have good news for you. Everything that exposes Mutiny's APIs can use await suspending directly, which will work as a coroutine. It's a coroutine. So Mutiny has an extension for Kotlin coroutines. So if I go back here and I call my service, that is running my coroutine here. So this is still Serpent. And if I do the all, then that's the first one. So the multi that works perfectly well. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk about these two services. Let's now look at gRPC. So the first thing about gRPC and something I want to show. Yep.
Just a quick question about the reactive stuff. So, there's the answer. They were saying, are there performance issues, difference between blocking endpoint in REST-easy reactive versus normal in REST-easy?
So Georgios did some benchmarks, and blocking with REST-easy reactive is faster than regular REST-easy. And the reason is the integration with the engine of Quarkus, which is much better, a lot more in line and understand the execution model, so we get benefit from that.
Awesome. And I just want to highlight the thing is that, yes, you actually get benefit from just, you don't have to be non-reactive. Oh, sorry, you don't have to be reactive in your application code. Just use blocking, and you still get a performance boost.
Exactly. And this is true for all the extensions that have reactive in the name. Most of them, like reactive messaging, that's the same thing. There is reactive in the name, but you can use that using the ad blocking annotations, and boom, you're done.
Yeah.
You won't be as fast, but you're done. So it's not because it's named reactive that you can't use it in an imperative manner. And that's what allows us to do this.
Maybe it also, like, just to work really quick, we are hoping to move to Rest Easy Reactive as a default sometime in the next releases, right? But that, just to make it super clear, you don't have to use reactive code if you don't want to. It's just that this model, like Clément mentioned, is way better integrated with Quarkus, so it's the way to go for the future.
So exactly, it's this part that make it reactive or not, and that's this, or you use it. That's up to you. This is how the extension is built.
Cool.
So I wanted to show you a couple of things around gRPC. The first thing, and if you use gRPC before, it's always a pain to configure the Maven gRPC plugins and so on. And here you don't. You just say Quarkus Maven plugin, and boom, you find a proto file. It will generate the code for you. You change the proto file, it will update the code for you. It's just completely integrated, and that makes it very, very easy to use. We actually, because we control the generation, we can actually generate gRPC files that are really, really nice and really well done for Quarkus. So for example, here you just implement the file service and you implement it, well, here with Muti, but again, you could use it as a blocking way too, and you're done. So yes, we still have the infamous builders of gRPC. I plan to work on that and try to see if we can remove them. It's how gRPC is used today, but yeah, it's not that nice, so we may improve around this. Another thing I wanted to show you about that is if you go to the dev console, I hope it's the right port, yes, you now have a gRPC dev console here. So you have a widget here. You can click on services. You see the services that are exposed automatically. You don't have to do anything. And you can test directly. So let me just copy this snippet here. So you write it as JSON. It's automatically mapped to protobuf by the widget. And you just say send. So if I have a hero named Max and a villain named Clément, both with the same level, I won. Sorry, Max. But because there is some random in the demo, yes, you won. So don't worry. So see, so that lets you test your gRPC services, including when you have streams directly inside your browser. You don't have to do anything. You just open the dev console. It's there by default in dev mode, and boom, you're there. You can test that. As I said, you have the ad blocking mode, so you're blocking for gRPC, that works too. We have request scoped propagations and context propagations. You can use that with Hibernate Reactive, and so on. So you decide how you want to use it. But yeah, that's really great if you plan to use gRPC. So now we have seen a couple of services right now. We have seen the heroes, the villains, the fight. So let's look at this API gateway. So an API gateway needs to be highly concurrent because that's what we are going to call. That's what is on the front side. So that's what your users are using. So I'm using Rest Easy Reactive again. But here I need to interact with all my services. And I've used a reactive REST client that comes with Quarkus 2.0 that's a REST client as you were using in 1.13, except that it's now completely non-blocking based on the architectures that we have. That doesn't mean that you can't use it in a blocking manner. I said it a couple of times that I really want you to make clear that for you. But here I wanted to have it in a non-blocking manner because it's an API gateway. It's also integrated with fault tolerance. So if you want to use circuit breakers, retries, fallbacks, bulkheads, and so on, you just add the right annotation and you're done. That's it. So you can build ambassador patterns. I've seen this term last week, which is basically a client with fault tolerance included. Same thing for gRPC. You can inject your gRPC clients. It's used as an interface we generate, so easy to use for you. and you're done. Then you use your mutility code. You can use Kotlin coroutines if you want to. You decide how you want to do it, how you want to structure your concurrency. And well, let's at least see this in action first. Yes, that's here. So let me. So this is a UI that is exposed by the API gateway. You fight, it pick a random hero, random villain, get both, call the fight service, organize the fight, simulate the fight, and return the winner. And the winner is King Shark against Green Arrow. And now it's Trapster versus MJ. I have no idea who she is. Oh, again, our villains are really winning this time. So let's see if we can get an arrow winning. No, it's villain forever. Okay. Oh, no. Finally, we got Korg winning against Arkham Knight. Another thing that I wanted to mention is the improvement around Kafka. Kafka is now becoming almost a modern backbone of any new systems. So it's you can use it as a event bus. You can use it as a log. Some people use it as a data store. So you decide how you want to use it. But the integration in Quarkus has been really, really tailored. And one of the things I want to show you is that you just say that your channel is Kafka. You don't have to implement to indicate the serializer, and so on. Quarkus 2 detects them. So there is still a couple of heuristics we need to add, and I got a pull request that just add some of them. But most of the time, you don't have to configure anything. It just works out of the box. It also works with Avro. And as Stuart mentioned, dev services. If you are using Avro, we start the API Curio schema registry out of the box in addition to your Kafka broker. So here, Kafka is not configured. When I started it, it started my Kafka broker automatically. I would have used Avro, it would have started API Curio registry automatically. So you don't have to run anything. So one of the things and how this is done in my application is that, here. Every time we have a fight, we send the result to Kafka, and I have another service, a start service that just collects that. So we will see how this is working. I need to go back here. So I will consume my stream, and now every time I do a fight, I should get some. So I will do a couple of fights. So fight took time because obviously simulating a fight between these heroes and villains, there is some random timeout and things like that. And here you go. So we got, I know, almost real time, all the results. So I did 22 fights. The hero won 7 and the villain won 15. Wow, that's a very bad day for heroes. But yeah, so a few other things that we have added around the reactive landscape. AMQP has been improved a lot. The better JSON support, dev service too. So we have worked a lot on adding dev services for all these brokers. So I mentioned some mutiny improvement. Most of the small Y implementation of microprofile specification have exposed mutiny APIs that you can use at ease, or you can use using coroutine, using mutiny Kotlin, the mutiny Kotlin add-on. That's all I have. I have no idea if I was long or not, but let's see. Woo! I should not share my screen anymore, or it's very frightening.
Okay, we actually just had a few questions I want to make sure we cover. So let's see. Someone asked,
Someone asked, what is reactive useful? No, I'm kidding.
For new projects, would you just use Kotlin instead of Java? So I'll just say that we don't recommend anything. We'll just say that Quarkus is targeting Java first. Kotlin is a very close second. And definitely what we do here in Quarkus 2 is getting coroutines in. And that definitely makes Kotlin having, if you want to do reactive programming, Kotlin's program model is definitely, let's say, more pragmatic. Let's call it that.
But you are left control on your structured concurrency, so there is plenty of things you can't do. So it's
so it's always a balance. But if your team is Java, go Java. Java is excellent. It's great. It's still very good. The API behind Mewtwo is still like understandable. It's not like foreign. But if you're at a Kotlin shop, use Quarkus and you're good. Like we're I'll just be honest and say Java is probably the one we've tested the best and the most. But Kotlin is definitely very good. And if you're good to go in Kotlin, go for it. One thing I know right now is a limit for us is that we're using Kotlin 1.4, and therefore, if you want to try Java 16, that's a challenge. But we're gonna fix
or
that
one.
sometime.
Justin, I know, is working on the next.
Yeah,
Justin is working on the next update.
So it's up to you. It's more up to you. We don't want to dictate. We just say Java is the one we have the most experience with. Kotlin is definitely in a good state here in 2.0. And by the way, if you want it like the previous, like I forgot now, was it last week or the week before? We actually had a whole episode about the Kotlin 2 features that we had in there. Okay.
It was last week.
One thing, Max, you can mix Java and Kotlin inside the same project. It's what I actually did. So you can actually mix them. You don't have to pick one or the other. You can
I actually hadn't realized. But so you can actually have most of your logic in Java, and if it's all clean, you write coroutine in Kotlin, and
exactly
off you go.
So typically, my Panache entity was still Java because Kotlin didn't bring anything for this, and there is no logic. And for everything that was using asynchronous code, then yes, I was using Kotlin coroutines.
Yeah. And then there's another one I think we'll get more and more is from a name I can't pronounce. Can recommend using Quarkus for a model and monolith application 400 plus tables.
We recommend Quarkus for everything. That's the answer.
Everything, even like so. The thing is, Quarkus. We always say container native because that's what we primarily want to target and focus our energy on. But there's nothing preventing you from using it in a modular monolith. And 400 plus tables doesn't even sound big to me, by the way. That is not an issue Quarkus has. But just be aware, if your application gets really big, like you have lots and lots of classes and lots of things, and you go back to not microservices, but like gigantic ones, you will have to give up some speed because just you're hitting physical limits of the Java VM, right? But that's so Quarkus that's no.
Only other thing I would say if people are going back towards a traditional monolithic model is just to be careful of assumptions about contain, like the war file container and the app container and the way that traditional Java EE applications do isolation between modules might not work the way you expect.
Yeah.
And another thing to add is that
Clément and then Stuart.
Quarkus adds a lot of APIs and features to build your modular monoliths the right way. So we have obviously Arc for everything dependency injection. So you have clear separation between your modules. We also have an event bus, which is built in. So you can even send events between all your components. So you can really build your modular monoliths consistently and correctly and have everything well decoupled. So yes, there is nothing. And 400 tables sounds like a nice demo to me. But
Stuart, did you have anything?
Yeah, I was going to say that I've actually tested sort of generated projects with, I think, several thousand entities, and dev mode and everything still seem to work pretty fast. So that should be fine.
Yeah. And then we had the last one, which is my favorite. If you do not want to use JPA, but use regular GRPC and need only access to SQL store procedures, what library do you recommend? Hibernate. Next. That's a standing. So I think Emmanuel wrote it in the chat, but yes, Hibernate actually to do what Hibernate does, it has to know a regular JDBC, and there is an API. There's literally just JDBC. So if you want to, Hibernate has it, and there's like a thing called stateless session that lets you keep no state around, and you can do all the operations you used to, and it works. But if you want to, there are other libraries out there that works with Quarkus too. But if you want to ask us, I would say definitely give Hibernate a try. And if it doesn't work for you, ping us, and we'll tell you if we can. We actually have something for that. Okay.
Three other questions. I'll try and go fast. Do you have plans for Groovy runtime support on the platform, native or not? The answer is I don't think there's been a priority put in this one. But it could be contributor driven. If you see the need, we don't have explicit plan to make that happen. The other one is, do the library mentioned as experimental or preview good for production, or do we need to use the Quarkus release with Red Hat Enterprise? So the Red Hat Enterprise is generally sort of a subset with different levels than the preview versus production than the Quarkus community is offering. So if you look at the Red Hat Enterprise, you can look at what pieces are supported and which other ones you can just rely on the community aspect on. And sometimes there is a bit of a difference. So you can go for that for that level of details. But otherwise, the other question was, do the Red Hat team will support you for your classic monolith? But the way we work is not so much selling you products. So we look at your needs, generally speaking, with my Red Hat one here. And we try and give you the best advice. Sometimes it might be actually, JBoss EAP, because it's going to work better for you. Sometimes it's going to be Quarkus. Sometimes it's going to be vanilla Vertex, for example. So it's not so much like we'll support you if you shoot yourself in the foot. We'll try to help you not shoot yourself in the foot in the first place.
And then India says, Quarkus is recommended for the new chat to-do list app for NASA Bus Flight product. Yes.
Definitely the later.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's one more here. So Vanatu says, what will be the life cycle of Quarkus 2x? We plan to continue the same that we did the last 1.5 years. Release every month, moving things forward, and listen to the community on how we moving things forward. If you're asking for product, we don't comment on that here. For community too, it's a new release every month.
And Emmanuel had still hard time to admit that there is a Quarkus 2.0, so we won't talk about the Quarkus 3.x right now. We need to give him some time.
Yeah.
That's
see how it goes. Oh yeah. Benjamin says
actually,
how much.
Go for it. Sorry.
Yeah, how much time 1x will be supported? So we again in the community, please recommend the jump for 1x to 2x is from the end user should be minor. In the community, we will. The plan is not to release anything unless there's like a massive security issue that's found. We can recommend community to move up to 2x. Just as if this has been at 1.14, we would told you please move up. It's the same thing we're doing here.
So if you're stuck with Java 8, that's probably the one reason where you will stick with 1.14.
Yes, or 1.13. Yeah. 1.13. So our promise is to please move up, and if anything horrible shows up, we'll look at it, but we don't plan on doing any additional feature development or bug fixes, nothing.
Which answers the next question. Basically,
deprecate version 1.
Well, it's not deprecation. It's just exactly the same model we've been following for the previous releases, right? Like when 1.13 came out, we stopped developing on 1.12. It's the same model.
And the philosophy is it's going to be very easy for you to move from one minor to another, including the one major to another, like as we said, because 1.13 to 2.x is treated as a minor from the user point of view, and it's just going to be a 1 hour every month that you can make happen versus waiting for like 2 years and then having like a ton and a ton of upgrades going down the line. So just follow the philosophy of the project, which is small, non-breaking increment from one minor to another. Or barely non-breaking, sometimes we do change and stuff.
And yes, time is here, but I'll just say that again. Need to wait for Red Hat comment on Red Hat build Quarkus 2. Yes. If you want to know about Red Hat build Quarkus, please contact Red Hat. We are here talking as Quarkus community project in that sense. And then someone says, any plans for making Java Jakarta E compatible in future releases? If he means will Quarkus be like a web container, war container? No. Will we use APIs that is in Java Jakarta EE? Yes, we already do.
I'm wondering if the question is more about the Jakarta namespace.
Yeah, if it's about namespace, yes, there's plans, but what they are is not finalized. So let's just say it's been discussed. Okay, I do want to give Jan, if I can find him on the screen, you're in the corner. There's a song about Graphql, but you'll get to that one. So Jan, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Jan, and I work on Quarkus. I work mostly on the microprofile side of things, and most recently that has been mostly around GraphQL. In the previous versions, we have had the GraphQL server extension for that allows you to expose server-side GraphQL services. And now in Quarkus 2, we have a new extension also for the client side. So we'll be also able to query GraphQL services, which is exactly what I will show you right now. What I'll be showing is basically just a slightly changed version of the quick start that we have for the GraphQL client. So you can just go to the quick starts repository and find this more GraphQL client quick start there and try it too. So let's get to it. I will be showing you how to query a public GraphQL service. I will not be using a server-side extension. I'll be querying a public service. Here is where you can try it if you want to try it with me. That's graphql.org/SWAPI-GraphQL. It's a service that basically offers you some data about the Star Wars universe. What we will be asking the service is this relatively simple query. We'll be asking for all films from the Star Wars universe, and for each film we will request the title and the list of planets that are kind of mentioned in that film. So this is the GraphQL query that accomplishes this. If I run this, you see that the service returns a big JSON document, and that contains a big JSON array. And in that array, you see each film with its title and the planets that are kind of mentioned in that film. So I'm showing you this in the Graphql. That's a cute interface where you can basically query GraphQL services manually and play around with it just manually. It offers, for example, code completion and all that stuff. So if you wanted to add more stuff, not just ask for the title and planets, also ask for the director, for example, and rerun the query, you also get the director field returned too. So, but the point of my demo will be to show you how to do this with Quarkus in a programmatic way. So, I have an application that kind of just includes the dependency on the Smora GraphQL client extension, and to be able to execute the stuff manually, because this is a demo, I wrapped all the usage of the client, I wrapped it into a REST endpoint. So basically, I have a REST endpoint in my application. And that REST endpoint, if you call it, it will create a GraphQL client and perform the query that you need, and basically return this forward the stuff back to the client that will be from my terminal. So we have two types of GraphQL clients: the type-safe client and the dynamic client. I'll talk about the type-safe client first. The type-safe client is type-safe because it works with domain objects. You need Java classes that represent the objects that you'll be getting from the remote service. In my case, I have a GraphQL client API interface here that represents the remote service. I added only one GraphQL query, and that is all films. The service offers more queries, but I added only one of them. and that's the all films query, and it returns a film connection. What's a film connection? A film connection is basically just a wrapper around films. It contains a list of films. Why there's this wrapper? Don't ask me. It's a bit. It doesn't have to be this complicated, but in this case, it's for pagination and all that stuff. But let's just use it as a wrapper for a list of films. If you look into the film class, you can see I have a title here and a planet connection, and planet connection is something like a film connection. Again, it just wraps a list of planets. And if I look into the planet class, I have just the name field along with its getters and setters. So if I execute, I will show you here. So I have this interface, and I inject an instance of that using context dependency injection, and then in the REST method, I just call the all films query, unwrap the films, and return it to the client. So if I execute this, I will start Quarkus in the dev mode here. Let's boot it up, and now I will use curl to contact my locally running Quarkus instance and tell it to use the typesafe client, and then run it through JQ, which is basically a tool that takes a JSON document and makes it more human readable. So if I executed this, I basically should get something very similar or basically the same what I received here in Graphql when running the query manually. So you see, I received pretty much the same thing. I received a list of films. Here you can see a film, A New Hope, with the list of planets. These 3 planets appear in that film, and then the same for more films. So that's the usage of the typesafe client. If I wanted to add some more fields, because there's I'm asking just for the name of the planet. If I also wanted to ask, for example, for the orbital period of each planet, that's one data field that's you can ask about. Let's do it in Graphql. You see that I added orbital period, and for each planet now I get not only the name but also its orbital period. If I want to do the same in my programmatically, I simply add a new field into the class representing a planet, and the typesafe client will automatically pick this up, and it will know that you're asking not only for the name but also for the orbital period. So if I add this field with its getters and setters and execute this thing again, you can see that I received the same document again, but it added the orbital period to each planet. Okay, now I will show you the other type of client, and that's the dynamic client. The dynamic client, compared to the typesafe client, doesn't use classes. It's not typesafe. Well, you can use classes optionally, as you will see. Here, we have instead of using classes, instead of using Java classes, Java domain model objects, it basically offers you some kind of domain-specific language that serves for constructing GraphQL queries. If you look at this is exactly how you build a query using this DSL, and it kind of is designed to look similar to the raw GraphQL query that you would write into Graphql. So you see that I create a document containing a single operation, and I ask for all films, and within that I ask for the title of each film and ask for the planets, a name of each planet appearing in that film. So this is basically, this is the This is the same query that we have here, and I built it using the DSL language. And so if you use the dynamic client, you inject an instance of a dynamic GraphQL client, and then you build a document with a query. This is it. And then you use the dynamic client instance to execute the query, and what you get back is a response. The response is an object that contains a JSON representation. Again, it does not automatically turn it into a model instance. So you get basically a response, and that response, you can see, get data. If you ask it for the data, it contains a JSON object. It's a JavaX JSON object. So if I execute this, this time I will execute the dynamic client and again run it through a JQ. I get the same document, but using the dynamic client. If you use the dynamic client, you can optionally turn that response into your model objects, and that is basically what I'm doing here. Yeah. From the response, you get an object. I unwrap it. The response is a JSON object. You unmarshal it into a film connection. This is the where in the document you should try to find an instance of film connection, and it translates that into an instance of film connection. So you can also use the dynamic if you have access to the classes. Then you can also, with the dynamic client, you can turn the response into an instance of your model class. And if you don't, you can just use it as a JSON object and treat it as a JSON object.
Very cool, Jan. So sorry if I interrupted, but we're running a bit out of time here. There was a question about two questions about GraphQL. One was if the GraphQL API supports mutiny. I don't actually know the answer to that one.
Yes, that's actually one more new thing that we have in Quarkus 2, and we have support for subscriptions. GraphQL in general supports subscriptions. In the example that I showed you, we had simple queries that basically is you send a request and you get back a single response. In GraphQL, you can also get subscriptions. That means you send a request to subscribe to multiple responses, basically.
Okay.
And that means that the client will open a WebSocket connection that can persist open for some time. And over that WebSocket connection, you will get multiple responses. That's useful in case that, I don't know, if the service allows you to notify you when there's a new item in the database or something like that.
Cool. So thank you, and I'll have to stop you here and give Sani. He has the last 5 minutes. You have here. Sani, do you want to jump on to your? Can you cover the thing you have in 5 minutes? You can't hear you for some reason, Sani. You muted?
Yes, okay.
There we go.
You can hear me now? Okay,
Yes.
sorry. Yeah, I don't have too much, so we can definitely fit it in short time. Just a general update about what's Hibernate doing in all of this. The main thing that people have noticed is we have been working on Hibernate Reactive, which is still flagged as experimental, even in Quarkus 2.0. There are various reasons for that. We are going to go through some of them now. But yeah, it was super important for Hibernate Reactive as well to get this update to Vertex 4 on the platform first. And now this is unlocking lots of potential for us to finally finish and deliver a really good experience. The main thing, well, of course, now Vertex 4 provided also the SQL Server support, which is nice to have an additional driver there. But the main thing we were looking forward to was a better connection pool. This was the one we had in 3.0 was a bit problematic for us to integrate. And the one in Vertex, since Vertex 4.1 is amazing. It's fitting really well. It's ticking all the boxes. So now we can move on with that. We also upgraded Hibernate ORM to version 5.5, which has not many noticeable things. So I don't expect it to break your applications. It should be pretty much the same ORM as you're used to. Under the hood, it has the huge list of performance improvements that we keep working on. It's like consuming less memory. It's more efficient to do things. Most of these improvements have now been highlighted by us spending quite some time benchmarking Hibernate Reactive. So we really want Hibernate Reactive to be able to showcase its potential for high performance applications. But Hibernate Reactive is a new set of APIs built on top of the Hibernate core. So like while we were doing this work, we found some opportunities to fix things in Hibernate core as well, which will benefit both users, right? These will benefit people that are not interested in Hibernate Reactive, as well as people that are using Hibernate Reactive. Another thing that's interesting in 5.5, but it's not really related here, but since it was asked before, is like we're also starting to publish Jakarta 9 API compatible artifacts. That doesn't mean we're committed to go to Jakarta API, but it's more like start this work so that we can actually experiment and evaluate what we want to do in the long term. But if you are just a Hibernate standalone user, you can definitely download the new set of APIs and start experimenting with that as well. Other interesting things is on the Quarkus side is now we have via Hibernate we have support for XML mapped entities, which has been long missing in Quarkus because we believed the entities being annotated was a much simpler and immediate approach. But of course, there are so many users, and many users highlighted that, oh, but I need to map like legacy things, or I need to have multiple different mappings for the same things, or I need to map objects which are not, that I can't control the source code of. So, well, that's available now in Quarkus as well. And we really don't have much time, right? But I was hoping to show something in Reactive quickly. So this is the quick start. You can see it.
Yep.
So let me this, you can find this if you go on the GitHub organization of Quarkus to fetch the Quarkus quick starts. There is this Hibernate Reactive quick starts. This is an entity. As you can see, it's exactly the same as you would have with Hibernate ORM. So the starting point, like the mapping, is identical. Nothing is really changing or different here. In the configuration, most things are the same. The things start to get different when you configure the URL for the database connection. This has to follow the Vertex syntax for the Vertex reactive drivers. To be clear, some people have been confused about Hibernate Reactive. Like, we're not wrapping GDBC drivers with the reactive sugar layer, right? This is completely reactive end-to-end. So you get all of the performance and efficiency benefits. The drawback is, of course, that we can't use the off-the-shelf existing GDBC drivers, but we have to use these the new generation of drivers from Vertex. Now, on the usage side of how you use Hibernate, that's where the changes are. So again, it's probably better if you take some time and look into the repository. It's going to look like this soon because I have some local changes which I haven't sent yet. But essentially, you can start from a session factory. We have two flavors. There is the one based on Mutiny API, and there was one based on the stage APIs from the JDK. The Mutiny API is much better, but if you just want to stick with the JDK APIs, you can use the alternative. Right? So, but we will focus on the Mutiny API. So how you use it is like you have to wrap every operation that's going to create an IO operation. It has to be wrapped into reactive methods. Right? So, if, for example, here we do with a transaction, this gives you a Lambda on which you have a session and a transaction. So you can control both of them and run operations on the session or the transaction within this block. What I'm doing here is like, so on this session, I create a named query and I get the results. And this is then returned as a uni of list of weights. Very simple. And that's pretty much it. I will stop here. In terms of APIs, there are more examples here. It gets a bit more complicated to do other operations, but if you're familiar with Reactive, this will look like really simple. Last thing, of course, this also supports native. So there, that started in 35 milliseconds. I had to pre-compile this. It's a Quarkus application. So what's missing to make this non-experimental? We have some big changes that are still needed in Panache Reactive. Stefan has been working on that recently. We didn't quite manage to get those ready for 2.0, but they will be ready soon after. So Panache Reactive gives us like the same benefits as using Panache on ORM, but for Reactive, it was missing still some integration bits. And documentation is missing as well, because until we have actually Panache Reactive working as expected, it wasn't really worthwhile for too much people to try this out. Yeah, I can stop here if there are questions.
Okay, well, thank you, Sandra. So just for reiterate to everyone, so Hybrid Reactive has been there in a while, but in 2.0, because of Vertex 4, we can kind of get all the big chunks closed. And you can use it today if you want to, but the Panache integration is coming, or the true reactive one is coming in 2.1 or 2.2.
Yeah, so the Panache integration, to be fair, exists already, right? It's just needing some extra work for us to consider it ready for usage.
Cool.
Yeah, my demo was using it already, so, but I like living on the edge.
Yeah, but I do want to highlight it's still experimental. It's there are. But if you want to try and get feedback, do please try it out. It's good enough to explore with. We had a few questions. I just want to. I know we're over time, but I think I don't want to leave this unanswered. So Marcos Norana said, "Will Quarkus still be Spring compatible?" The answer is yes. We still have our Spring extensions. Yeah, I'm not. Is there any new ones? Yeah, go ahead.
No, we don't have any new ones. But I just want to mention here that basically the way we build things in Quarkus ensures this compatibility, right? Because all extensions play with each other. So the fact that we moved to Vertex 4 doesn't break the Spring APIs or anything like that, or the fact that we upgraded Hibernate to 5.5. Again, nothing breaks. So in the future, we'll probably rebase Spring Web onto REST-easy Reactive. But yeah, for new Spring extensions, I haven't heard folks requesting anything really heavily.
Okay, and then there's one here. We'll just have a tricky question. Does Java 9 model system work in Quarkus? I think the answer is undefined as this moment. But I think it's one of those things that if we get enough questions, we might look at it more. But I know there are some stuff that makes it hard. But generally, we treat the module system as something that the JDK uses, not so much the applications. But this stuff can change. So if you have a big need, show up on Quarkus Dev, and I'm sure we'll tell you what are the things we need to fix.
Because between native and the fact that we're aiming at microservices, then the notion of a module, I guess, is losing a bit of its interest, right? So it's definitely not super high on our list. Right?
Yeah, so it's I'd say it's not something being discussed in the next 2 minutes. I'll just say if you're interested in it, show up on Quarkus Dev, and we're happy to have a conversation on it. And then there was Oleg said, where was it? I can't find it now. Oleg. What's the timeline for Java 17 support and will require Quarkus 3? So I'll say no, it won't require Quarkus 3.
There will be no Quarkus 3.
How do I remove a manual? I'll put it in there. No. So it's Java 17 is still the way we work is we have a minimal version. And then if anything doesn't work in Java 17 or 16 or higher versions, we could treat it as a bug.
Yeah, because let's remember that with Quarkus 1, you could use Java 11, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't a required. It's not like the minimum version is Java 11 now, but it doesn't mean that Quarkus doesn't work with 16 or 17 when it comes, right?
And just so you know, so we have CI testing for Java 16. The reason why we don't say, hey, it works everything in Java 16 is because, for example, the Kotlin support is not fully there. And I think in the last month we had issues with like the Gradle support. There was something wonk there, but these are all being fixed. So you can use Quarkus with Java 16. I believe you can even use it with Java 17, but there are edge cases that are not covered yet. But we treat, if you find them and they are not fixed, we please open them and we treat them as a bug in there. But I expect you have Java 17. Let's call it soon.
Without Loom.
Without what? Without, sorry?
Without Loom, which everybody was longing for.
Sure. I think, is that everything we got? Yeah, he asks about, is having reactive experimental just pronounced reactive? Well, having reactive is experimental. So therefore, everything depends on it is experimental, as it is now. Okay. You know, guys, this has been a very stressful hour for me of having to navigate all these windows. But I think we have to, close it in. We have 6 minutes over. So thank you for everyone joining. Anyone want to give a last comment on Quarkus 2? Or just say bye?
Try out the CLI.
Bye.
That's it.
Bye-bye.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, by the way, the thing that fell out at the bottom was what's next. So that was what I was going to... That's right. But I do want to mention, by the way, Quarkus 2 has a CLI. So there's now a command line you can use, but I don't have time to show it. We'll have an episode in the near future about it. So yeah, and and good night, and especially to Stuart, who's way up way late. Thank you.